Hello everyone. Today let's solve the problem fixed point. So you can read the entire problem. So here they have explained it nicely, as well as they have given input and what the desired output that we need to get. So I'll just summarize the whole problem for you so that we can understand clearly. So so just give me a second. So what the question states, we are given a sequence of integers. So we are given a sequence of integers and we need to ensure, so we are given a sequence of integers and we need to ensure that a certain number of deletions, after a certain number of deletions, at least k elements in the resulting sequence are equal to their indices. So after, suppose if we are removing this one and this one, after removal, after a certain number of deletions or removal, at least k elements in the resulting sequence are equal to their indices. So that is nothing but they have represented this one as E of I equals I. So after a certain number of deletions, at least k numbers in the resulting sequence are equal to their indices. That's what. What is our main goal? Our main goal is to determine minimum number of deletions required to achieve or determine if this is possible. So minimum number of deletions, what are the number of minimum, what is the minimum number of deletions that is required to achieve this? So that is what we have to determine. This is what the problem states. So let's see the approach. So just give me a second. First, what we will do, as usual, first step is we'll go with the input handling. So we'll be going with the input handling. So while writing the problem, you will come to know, or if you have followed the previous problems, you'll be knowing about the input handling. So first step is always the input handling, and input handling is similar to most of the problems, almost all the problems. So next step is we'll be going with the dynamic programming array, DP array. So we'll be going with the DP array. Why we are making use of the DP array? The approach that we are going with is dynamic programming for this particular problem. Why we are making use of DP array over here? Because to keep track of the maximum number of elements that match their indices. So what are the maximum number of elements that match their indices after the minimum number of deletions? That is what we have to find. So I explained the question clearly. So in the second step, we are making use of the DP array. Why we are making use of the DP array? To keep track of the maximum number of elements that matches their indices. Maximum number of elements that matches their indices. Max elements. I'll just give max. Maximum number of elements that matches their indices, right? So given certain number of deletions. So after making certain number of deletions, the maximum number of elements that match their indices. That's what we will be storing inside this DP array. That is the reason we'll be making use of dynamic programming here, dynamic programming array. So after this, in the third step, what we'll be doing, we'll be updating the DP array. Why we have to update the DP array? For each element, we'll update the DP array to keep track of how many elements match their indices as we consider deleting elements. So we have to update the DP array just to find the minimum number of to keep track of how many elements match their indices, right? As we consider deleting the elements. So here, this is nothing but DP array updation. Third step, right? So after the third step, what we'll be doing? So we have to finally determine the minimum most. We will, in simple words, we'll be checking the DP array to find the minimum number of deletions that is needed to have at least k elements equal to their indices. That's what we will be displaying finally. So this is nothing but we will be displaying this one finally, printing. For printing the result, we'll be making use of the console log. We'll be making use of JavaScript or the Node.js, right? In the JavaScript or Node, we'll be making use of the console log to print this one. Print the output, final output. So this is the approach that we are going with for this problem. So I'll just delete this one. Let's start writing the code. You'll understand this better. So first step is always the input handling. So we'll start by importing the required modules and initialize the input reading. So I'll just write first. This will be standard input dot resume. Next, set encoding. This one, we are setting this one to UTF-8. So this is one thing. Next, let's set the input string to empty string. Also, let's set the current line to 0. So this is one thing. Next, we have to collect the input data from the standard input stream. Here we have to collect from here, right? We have to collect the input data from the standard input stream. So we'll be making use of event listener. So I'll just give process dot standard input dot on and just make use of data. Here within this one, and just give input stdin. So let's append the input string to input stdin. So this is one thing. Next step, I'll just copy the same thing and make the necessary changes. Let me come here. Instead of this one, I'll just give end. Let me remove this one. So here we are not appending input string. Here instead of this one, this will be input string itself. So let me make use of the trim to remove the white spaces. Split of slash, and we have to read individual lines of the input, right? For that purpose, I'll just make use of the split. Again, we have to remove the white spaces in all the lines, right? All the lines of the input. So how can we do that? I'll just make use of map. Let me give string dot trim. So again, we are to remove the white spaces. I'll be making use of trim. Basically, what we are doing in this step, we are processing the input data once the end of the input is reached, this one. So after this, in this step. So after this, I need to call the main function. So we have not yet written the main function. We'll be writing the main function in the future. I mean, inside the main function, we'll be writing the core logic or the main logic of the program. So we have not yet written the main function. We'll be writing that one in the future. After writing the main function, we'll call the main function here. So I'll just leave the space. Next, after this, what I'll do, let's write the function to read the next line of the input. So we have to read individual lines, right? So first line, then the next line, then the next line. So every line we have to read the input lines. Each input line has to be read. So for that, I'll just write the function. Let me give read line. So this one has to be return input string current line. Let's increment this one. So that we go to the next line. Next, let's write the main function. Inside this, we'll be writing the core logic or the main logic, right? First step, what we will do, before main function, let's write the function to solve each test case. In this case, yeah, let it be like this itself. Before the main function, what we'll be doing, we'll write the function to read the, to solve each test case. So I'll just make use of the function name solve here. Let me give solve. Let me consider 3 parameters, n, k, as well as array, ARR I'll be considering. So here, let's initialize the dynamic programming array or the DP array to track the maximum matches. So this is easy. I'll just give DP array of, let's give this one n plus 1. And initially, let's fill this array with 0. For that, I'll just make use of fill. Next, let's iterate through each position in the sequence. For always after the initialization, we'll go for the iteration, right? For iteration, we'll make use of the for loop. I'll just give I equals 0, I less than or equal to n. Let's increment the I So also let's update the DP array based on the previous values as well. So I'll just be making use of another loop. I'll just set the j to I, j greater than 0, j minus minus, nothing but the reverse iteration, right? So let's carry forward the previous maximum value. So I'll set the dp of j to dp of I here. Dp of j to dp of j itself. So after this step, we'll update the dp of j to calculate the current element if it matches its index. If it matches its index, then only we have to update the dp of j. That's what we'll be doing here. So we have to find the maximum number of elements that matches the index, right? To find the maximum number of elements that matches its index, I'll be making use of math.max. Here, this will be dp of j, and this will be, I'll just be making use of math.max, dp of j, dp of j minus 1 plus array of I minus 1. If it is equal to j, let's make use of the ternary operator. If it is equal to j, then we can directly give 1, or else I'll directly give 0. So yeah, or else if we can make use of the if condition as well. I'll just go with the ternary operator, right? I don't have to write the long code. So this is one thing. So next what I'll do, let's initialize the result as minus 1. Why we are initializing the result to minus 1? That means we don't have impossible by default. So for that reason, I'll just give let most equals minus 1. So after this, let's check the DP array to find the minimum number of deletions that is needed to find the maximum number of elements that matches their index. So in simple steps, we are checking the DP array to find the minimum number of deletions that is needed. For now, I'll just give for let j equals n, j greater than 0, j minus minus. So this is one thing. Next, if dp of j itself, right, we have considered, yeah. If it is greater than or equal to k, then we'll set the result as the number of deletions that is required, right? So in my case, I have took the variable name moose. I have already assigned this one. So I'll just give moose equals n minus j. Nothing but we are setting the result as the number of deletions that is required. So, or else I'll just give break here. This is fine. So next step, what we will do, this is it. Next step. So after this here, sorry, I have to return the moose right here. So yeah, total number of mouse, right? So I have to return the mouse. So that's what I have done here. So this is it for the function solve. Next, let's move to the main function. So why we are making use of the main function? To handle the multiple test cases. We have already written the main core logic inside the solve itself. So here in this case, main function, we are just we are writing the main function to handle the multiple test cases. Here I'll give equals plus read line to read the multiple test cases, right? So I'll just make use of the read line. So here, while this one, then what I'll do, let's read the each test case parameters. So here I can just make use of the destructuring operator, right? Or else you can initialize with individual variable names as well. I'll just go with the destructuring operators. So first we have to read. So for that purpose, I'll just be making use of read line. Then space for the numbers. If we have certain numbers, more than one number in the same line, we have to leave the space. For that, I'll be making use of the split. Then we'll map all the numbers. Map mapping the number type. We can also make use of the begint over here. I'll just be making use of number. If we are handling with the large input or the large numbers, we can make use of begint. In my case, I'll just make use of the type number. So next, let array equals read line. Here I'll just give split. Again, same thing. Almost map of the type number. So this is one thing. Finally, we'll output the result for the current test case. So how can we output the result for the current test case? For printing in the JavaScript, I'll just make use of the console log for outputting. So we have written the solve function, right? Inside the solve function, I have taken the parameters. I have took the parameters n, k, and array. That's what I'll be mentioning over here. In simple terms, if I need to tell, we are just outputting the result for the current test case. So this is it. So here, I'll just come here. Let me call the main function over here. So this is it. Let's check for the input. So here, let me copy this one. Let me paste it over here. What is the output we need to get? Here, 1, 2, minus 1 and 2, right? So let me run this one. 1, 2, minus 1 and 2. We are getting the correct output, right? So this code is working absolutely correct. I'll just copy this one. Let me paste it over here. So let me hit the beautify code. Let me copy this one and let me come here. Click on submit code. Let me choose E, right? Fixed points. So I'll just paste the code over here. Let me click on submit. So let's wait for certain time. So here we can see the code got accepted, right? So this code works absolutely correct. So yeah, this is it. Thanks for watching, guys.